Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone. Welcome into your number one source for Native American television news, Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman, here in the Mvskoke Media Studios as we prepare you for this week's episode. We've got a really good episode today. We're going to have some comments from Principal Chief James Floyd regarding the Diamond Pipeline issue that has come up recently with the National Council and in some recent legislation. We'll get you all up to speed on that, and we'll hear from him on the issue. Also, folks, it's Tawfumbaji season. That's all there is to say about it. Wild onions out there, they're sprouting, they're being picked, they're being fried up in some eggs, they're at dinners, so everybody is excited right now. Lots of dinners to go to. We are going to revisit a popular short film I did last year around this time about wild onions, titled Tawfumbaji in our language, that is wild onions, and you will be able to see that today, as well as a small schedule of some of the dinners coming up, the whens, the wheres, and the times, and everything like that. So we've got you hooked up this week on Native News Today. Do not go anywhere. We got a great show, I promise you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this first break. You're watching Native News Today. And welcome back into the program as we get started this week with wild onions. Yeah, that's all you got to say. Wild onions, they are sprouting, they're ready to go. The dinners have already been happening. We've got some big dinners coming up. And for this week, just wanted to show you and revisit a short film I did last year entitled Tawfumbaji. This is basically a story of just a woman and her daughter and the bond over cooking, picking wild onions and everything like that, and tells so much of a story of so many of our people.
I grew up out in Kellyville, and Hebron Lake is always where my mom used to take me to get away from everything. It's really relaxing out there. We used to just go out there and sit and pick onions with my mom. She would tell me stories, and as it was why she was digging. It was just like she had a story for every time she was digging an onion out. And she would teach me how to go through the dirt and sift through the onions and pick the garlic out from the onions. And she'd make me fill the holes back up with the dirt after we picked them. I like to go pick onions usually after it rains, because after a rainy day it's easier to cut into the ground and then pick through all the mud, because it just kind of falls apart. And your onions, it's just easier to break that dirt apart and get your onions out. Usually my mom always tells me that whenever the onions they got the big fat heads on them, she said those are going to be the tougher onions. She said those are the ones you really got to know how to cook. She said usually only the experts know how to cook those, because you have to cook them a lot longer. My mom always tells me just put a little bit of water on your onions and let them soak. That way it helps the dirt come off of them, makes them a little easier to clean. I've watched my mom do it after she cleans them. I've seen her use a knife to cut them in pieces, and then I've seen her use scissors because she likes the scissors because they're easier. Because you can just hold them in your hand and just cut them as you're going down.
Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of grease to it, but not a whole lot. Just enough to like cover your pan. Just take time and keep stirring them. They're going to come out where they're all cooked, and they're not going to be undercooked, and they're not going to be overcooked. You just have to stay over it and wash your food, and it'll come out like you want it to. Get your eggs all beaten. You don't want to put no salt in it because you already got salt in your eggs. You don't want to put too much eggs in it because then you're defeating your purpose. You just want to put little eggs in there to add with your onions. You don't want the eggs to overcome your onions because you want to get the onion taste, because that's what you wait for. Everybody waits for the onions. By not adding so much water, you get the flavor of everything. If you add too much water, it takes away the flavor, not only from your onions, but your eggs as well.
And I want to thank all the people that made that happen once again. They're a great little short film, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. And hopefully you jotted down all of those wild onions so you can get out to them. Well, as I told you in the opener, we were going to have Principal Chief James Floyd and comments from him, answering some questions about the Diamond Pipeline issue. Myself, Honey Carranzo, went over, conducted this interview with Chief. We have this for you now, and then afterwards, Honey Carranzo will join me in the Mvskoke Media newsroom set to close out the show. But now we have comments from Principal Chief James Floyd. In July 2015, an emergency session was held to vote on NCA 15-156, a law of the Mvskoke Creek Nation authorizing the Principal Chief to accept the donation and request trust status for property located in Okmulgee County and appropriating funds for the incidental costs associated with the trust application. A regular session was held February 27, 2016 to pass an easement for the Diamond Pipeline. TR 16-022, a tribal resolution of the Mvskoke Creek Nation authorizing the Principal Chief to execute a right-of-way and easement grant across tribal land for the construction, use, and maintenance of pipeline for Diamond Pipeline LLC in Okmulgee County, Oklahoma. A regular session was then held in February of this year opposing the pipeline. A tribal resolution was passed authorizing the Principal Chief to deed real property located in Okmulgee County, Oklahoma. Mvskoke Media was granted an interview with Principal Chief James Floyd to discuss the timeline of events pertaining to the Diamond Pipeline issue.
Lee Madison LLC, I believe, are the owners of the RV ranch. And that's the extent that I know about Lee Madison LLC.
And have you been in contact with them?
I have not. The date of the land transfer and the amount of land preceded me in the office. So I'm not sure the background on how or at the present time, I'm not sure the exact acreage of the land. I would say it's more or less 10 acres, 5 acres, something like that. It's a small parcel of land adjacent to the Duck Creek Casino. Not to my knowledge during this administration. The action of the National Council last weekend was to deed the property, give the Principal Chief, myself, the authority to deed the property away from the nation. And this property was received on a quitclaim deed from Madison. And there were a number of questions about that. Of course, you have the issue with the pipeline that kind of traversed a section of that property. And really, the nation was given a piece of property that we had no interest in and received it with things that normally we would not take in property. And so the procedures that we generally follow in either buying or accepting property were not followed. And it was felt by the National Council and myself as well for us to just quitclaim deed the property back to the people who gave it to us and move on. Well, in terms of talking to the previous owners of this property and to Madison LLC, at this point, I see no need that the Principal Chief should be involved in discussions because really we have no interest in their company or this piece of property. However, it doesn't exclude the Attorney General's office looking into it to take a deeper look at how we arrived at this situation. And them being independent, they may be doing so as we speak. They don't apprise me of it. They don't need to. They're independent. But I think they probably have some questions concerning this because of the unusual nature of how we got this property. I can't speak for them. This was received in about August 2015. So in that regard, I probably am not the person to be asking that question to because I just don't know. The question of whether we would receive money from the pipeline company is one of the issues that we considered. It appears that when the property was deeded over to the tribe, that a condemnation process was already in place with by Diamond Pipeline against the previous owners. However, we find no records of the nation receiving any funds from Diamond Pipeline. We did take action, as you are probably aware, in 2016 to allow a right-of-way on that property, which was basically a frontage road. But at that time, to my knowledge, there wasn't any indication of any settlement with Diamond Pipeline regarding, the compensation for them, the compensation to us as a nation from Diamond Pipeline for that piece of property that they had condemned. To my knowledge, the pipeline doesn't cross any of the nation's property, any of our restricted property, or any of our ceremonial grounds. It comes near, I think, within a mile of the Duck Creek ceremonial ground. But we have had staff look at the line itself, and predominantly, I would say at least 90% or more is private-owned fee property. Some tribal members may own that, but again, everything we've seen, it does not cross trust or the nation's property or restricted property. I've not spoken to the Miko at Duck Creek regarding Diamond Pipeline, no. The present situation and the actions that the National Council took wasn't really because of Standing Rock. I think we wanted to take a look at that issue ourselves. Now, there are people that have raised that issue, and we were aware of that. But if anything, we wanted to take a deeper look at the land itself, and kind of secondary to that was the pipeline. And I think that we acted in the best interest of the nation and our citizens by deeding that property back to the previous owners. Well, as a nation, there will probably not be any formal efforts to stop the pipeline because we really have no standing, since we would be dealing with private property owners throughout the course of the pipeline through the Creek Nation. Now, symbolically, we could pass a resolution saying that we don't like the pipeline, but private property owners, from what we have heard, have all settled with Diamond Pipeline and accepted money, so you kind of expect, with that transactions already being completed, that they're allowing us to go through their property. So again, we have very little standing in trying to interfere with the rights of private landowners within the Creek Nation when it doesn't involve restricted property, trust property, or any of the nation's property. I personally talked to several citizens about it, and from the action from Saturday, they seem to be pleased with the action that was taken. It was passed on Saturday. Both the Speaker of the Council and myself signed the legislation on Monday, and subsequent to that, then the land was deeded back to the previous owners. Pretty simple, actually. It was in a quitclaim deed to us, which is basically just a piece of paper that did not need our permission, evidently, and they took it to the courthouse and filed it, basically saying that the new owners are the Mvskoke Creek Nation, unbeknownst to us, from what I can gather. So we basically generated the same piece of paper, took it down to the courthouse and filed it, and said that we're deeding this back to I think Madison LLC, I'm not entirely sure. And that's kind of the end of the story.
And so it's no longer ours as of now.
As of earlier this week, it's no longer any property of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Well, I think that going forward with anything regarding property, we need to make sure that we do follow the procedures that were already in place and have been in place for a number of years before any property is even accepted by the nation. We do have people who want to provide free property to the Creek Nation. There's people who want to sell it at a reduced price, and there's people who want to sell us property, for commercial, private reasons. All of those, there has to be due diligence done through the Department of the Interior. That includes environmental work, title searches, and to make sure that there's no encumbrance on that property that would cloud that title in any way. And I think if anything, it's caused us to pause and make sure that any land that we have in the future that we're seeking to purchase, that we make sure that every detail is attended to and nothing left to assumption. Well, maybe that's the right word. And I think we'll be okay.
And our thanks again to the Principal Chief and the Principal Chief's office for granting that interview regarding the Diamond Pipeline issue as it pertains to us here at Mvskoke Creek Nation. And we will continue to keep you updated on the developments in that story as they come to us, as they become available. And I wanted to give props. Joining me now as we close out the show here in the Mvskoke Media Newsroom set, Ms. Honey Carranzo, the reporter for the Mvskoke Nation News. She actually accompanied me and conducted that interview with Principal Chief Floyd, so I wanted to thank her for that. And Honey, wanted to bring you on this week and get you on the set to close out the show here to talk a little bit about another issue that we've been covering, and that is as it pertains to Dodie Barnett, the representative on the Mvskoke Creek Nation National Council, brought upon with charges from the rest of the National Council and had hearings and everything like that. So kind of bring us up to speed on where we've gotten with our coverage and where we are at now with the latest developments.
On March 6th, they held a follow-up hearing, and during the meeting, they went into executive session. So we don't know what happened during those 2 hours that they were in executive session.
Pretty close vote too there, wasn't it?
Yes.
8-5, I believe,
Yes.
on to go into executive session. So there were council members that had objection to going into the private. A lot of people out there don't know executive session with the Mvskoke National Council is they go into the private chambers. People aren't allowed in there to see the business they're conducting. So there were 5 against it. So yeah. And where did we go from there?
And after they came out of executive session, they voted on each of the sanctions to discipline her, and 3 out of 6 passed.
Okay.
You can go to our website, MvskokeNationNews.com, or our Facebook page to read in depth what happened.
Right.
And also
Or MvskokeMedia.com.
MvskokeMedia.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got the blanket site there to cover it all, but Mvskoke Nation News on their site.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and you've been covering this from back from when it first came up, and it seemed that when the issue first came up, Ms. Barnett had an objection because not really everybody knew the procedures. This was sort of a first time ever deal where they were kind of trying to figure out what exactly the process would be, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I kind of got that from the coverage and everything like that too. But so now we come to the point of putting out the punishment for talking to employees, and some of the things that were mentioned in the accusations were intimidation of employees, things like that. What exactly did they uphold on her discipline?
I think the biggest one is she is not supposed to have communication with executive staff or independent agencies without a written request that is then approved by the speaker.
And does that go before the rest of the council, or is it just a decision of the speaker?
It's just the decision of the speaker.
Okay, all right. And that was one of the bigger ones that were in the possible disciplinary action that was going to be taking place, right? Okay, well, that is upheld. They actually, I believe, struck the fine. Is that correct?
Yes, there was a $500 fine. It was voted against.
Okay, and there was was the travel, was that upheld? The travel
The travel
ban?
was upheld.
Okay, all right, and then this is all included. We're just rehashing, of course, a little bit here, but this was all included in the story. And as Honey said, you can find all of it on MvskokeMedia.com. Go to Muskogee Nation News. Our Facebook has followed it. We have a lot of people talking about the issue because, as I said, anytime you have an issue like this where there's a couple different sides, for us, we're covering all of those sides. We want to hear from Ms. Barnett. We want to hear from the National Council representatives on this issue. We want to hear from the people. We want to hear your feedback. And as I said, it's interesting to see what kind of precedents this sets going forward, because we can certainly entertain the fact that these things may happen in the future. And at least now we have a baseline to go off of to see what they will conduct, the meetings they will have, the hearings. And like they said, they had 2 of them, then moved it to March 6th, as you said. So giving Miss Barnett a chance to, so to speak, have her day in court, so and be able to defend herself. So we have all of that information that you need from that story chronologically on MuskogeeMedia.com and in Muskogee Nation News Facebook page. So all of the information that you need there. Also, if you want to follow us on YouTube, I always pub the YouTube channel because we have so much content on there now. If you visited our YouTube channel lately, you will see that a lot of the older episodes, which are kind of embarrassing for me, because I was just a young sprout, and I was still getting my feet wet in the business, but bear with me, folks. They get better as you go. So if you're on episode 98, don't worry, 165 is a lot better. So but our YouTube channel has this as well. Go check us out, Native News Today, Muskogee Media, and then you can go to our Twitter, our Snapchat, our Instagram. We always have things going on. We're really making a push with our marketing team right now too to get all kinds of things going. So we've really had a great time today on the show. We want you to visit all of those social media sites if you can, and also visit those wild onion dinners. As we showed earlier in the show, it is wild onion season. So we hope that you had a chance to jot down the schedule there and are able to visit some of these great places, because a lot of them, a lot of these dinners you're going to supports the communities that you're at and the churches that you go to. So it's a great thing there. We will keep you up to speed, up to date on all things Muskogee Creek right here on Native News Today and all of our sites, as we said. Stay with us here, MuskogeeMedia.com, and we'll have it all for you each and every week. We'll see you guys next time.